Not quite. Well, I don't know anybody who worked in the physics.
I know somebody who works in physics. Oh, so he's actually not, he's not here right now, but he worked at the same place that I did. So a lot of my coworkers are actually biophysics or physics, even physics, pure physics students. And what they do is a lot of working on improving the scanners that they have. So the theory behind the MR and the CT are physics related. So it is definitely not impossible for a PEY physics, because I'm not sure how much he enjoyed his PEY, because he was like, it was very stressful, the person that he was working under, but it was a good experience because he was the one that recommended that I should go on PEY and look into staying at staff PEY.
May I ask one more question for Rhonda? How does biomed and engineering compete with biomed or like medical students? Like
Medical students tend to go for very different jobs. So like if you're looking at pure biology, the biology tends to be, I actually don't know any pure biologists. They're different parts. And so like my company is split into 5 different cores, and my core is preclinical, but there is a more biology side to it. So you'll be working more with cells and more with cell lines and those kind of stuff. So it really depends on your focus area that you're interested in.
I guess that would be a question about how the NSI students in general compete against the non-NSI students or like non-refugee students. I guess any of you, just if you want to answer.
Well, the program, so OPG runs a formal internship program. There are about 30 spots that open up each year, and they typically accept 100 to 120 applicants in the first round. So there's a lot of competition, and the majority of the applicants are coming from nuclear engineering programs at McMaster and the Ontario College of Technology or something. But places that actually have nuclear engineering programs. And so competing against those students was certainly difficult, but it took a bit of extra work on my part and on the part of the other NSI student who applied in my year to convince them that our program was worth something. But in the end, that was an asset to have, because we could demonstrate that we had all this additional background, that we would understand things as quickly or even more quickly than many other students would.
I want to just add one thing real quick. So I got a chance to actually interview the next round of PEYs, thankfully enough. So I got a chance to actually see everyone's sort of applications. So in terms of that, what I found is a lot of the students, actually, it's mostly just Indies. They had really polished applications, I found, compared to MSci students. In terms of their resume, their cover letters, in general, they were a lot more polished, and it seemed like they put in more time into their applications. And so when someone puts in more time into their application, you sort of want to read it more, and you sort of want to interview that person. That's the only sort of recommendation I have for you guys, is make sure you go to the Career Center where they can actually look over your resume cover letter for you. It's definitely a great resource to use, just so you have a very good polished application. Go ahead.
When you say it's more polished, like by color or the content is essentially the same, right?
Yeah.
The career office only tells you to like switch orders or like rephrase it somehow.
Surprisingly, it makes a pretty big difference, because like what happens is you have a huge stack, you have like 100 different applications, you're expected to go through these in a few hours, so you might not get a chance to fully read through every single one and read every single detail. So I remember, I don't know if I should be admitting this, but there's one application that aesthetically looked really, really nice. The content was okay, but aesthetically it looked really nice, and I was like, okay, if someone can put this, if someone put in the effort to make this kind of really nice resume and cover letter, it was addressed very nicely, it was written very thoughtfully, it was written very nicely. If they put that kind of effort in, they're worth interviewing. So we interviewed that person.
You really do want to think about if you had to read read this resume, what would you say? And you want to make it clear and concise, right? So you don't want to put a lot of information in that's not relevant. That's another way of creating a polished resume.
Yeah, I guess I'll add some quick points to that, and then I guess my friend had a question. So resume really isn't a hard and package starting and you, I guess, recall first year practice or even second year. When you do resume, it'd be nice to put on the receiving end of it. Think about somebody has to see like thousands of this every day, and then or maybe hundreds. Something that is beautiful and unique about you, and also with concise content. It's okay to leave some blank space, as long as like those are aesthetically pleasing. Like a very packed resume, you have to make sure everything is worth saying. Well, it's a very packed resume actually cost displacing. So yeah, put yourself on the receiving end and apply the design philosophy and process you learn in practice.
If I might,
So I was going to ask about Calvin. I think Michael has a question.
If you have a question, go ahead.
You said you did more work to compete against those graduate students. What do you exactly mean by more work?
well, for example, a typical electrical and computer engineering student could go into a job application and just saying they study electrical and computer engineering communicates what they do. If you go into a job application saying, I'm in engineering science, nano-engineering option, they probably don't know what you're talking about. So you have to go that extra length to explain it, to explain what kind of background the EngSci program gives you, and to convince them that it's something worth doing.
And you can only do that once you've made it to the interview, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
In my resume, well, I have a few different versions of my resume, but I'll more on that in a moment. But in my resume, I usually highlight a few important courses or projects that relate to the job I'm applying for. And that often stems from first 2 years where it's kind of a grab bag of courses from every different discipline. And a bit more on the technical aspects of a resume. If you're applying for a job that you know kind of what the job is about, you can get a lot further by putting specific things that relate to that job in your resume. Don't just say, this is the education I've had, this is the extracurriculars I've done, and I'm a nice person who can use Microsoft Word. You should, if you can, say stuff that relates to the job you're applying for, which means you might have a set of fairly similar resumes, but specific differences based on each job you've applied for.
And just to